Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose.
How you doing this morning, Jared?
I've been better, bro. I got my ass stuck in a blizzard last night trying to sneak in and out of Wyoming. So,
Dude, you in the cold, man. There's something going on there.
Well, you don't even want to know how I got out of the blizzard. I won't share that on the show because I probably shouldn't have done it, but I wasn't spending the night in Laramie. I went up to watch some wrestling. It's almost 60 degrees down here. Everything's melting. I crossed the Wyoming line. It's a blizzard.
Wow.
But I did meet an interesting older couple at the wrestling match who told us that they purposely do that to keep Coloradans out of Wyoming. That they kind of watch how many people are coming across the line. If there's too many, they turn on a blizzard to send us home.
Hey, well, it sounds like it's working.
Yeah, dude, it was interesting. So
good wrestling match, though.
D1, you know, it's kind of goes back to what we've talked to with our community. It's all about exposure, right? For a lot of Trey's life, he loved wrestling, but he's like, I just want to go to work. I don't want to go to college. And now his senior year, he's starting to think he might want to wrestle in college. So it's about exposing him to all the different levels, all the different things that come with being a college athlete. And I think that's something we've done a good job sharing with our community, is that life is really about exposing yourself. Because how do you know if you want to do something if you've never been around it? Right. And, you know, like you with your travels to Egypt and stuff, like I'd never even thought of going to Egypt until you start exposing me to what I'm missing out. And that's, I think that's an important lesson for all of us. And especially as we dive into today's episode, which I'm pumped for, is exposing yourself to other people and their stories and their experiences so that you can learn from them, because you can't possibly do it all yourself. But I can learn from you.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what that was about. And he experienced how to navigate blizzards.
Yeah. Well, awesome of you, man, for exposing your son. You know, not a lot of dads take their children to a D1 wrestling match or that involved. You know, I've personally gotten to see you very involved along with Trey's journey. And, you know, although young King is a beast, you have to know that Dad definitely had a big part in his whole mindset and how he approaches things. Very mature for his age, very calm, very collected. You know, have had the privilege to see him warm up for his wrestling matches senior year. So good work, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and it goes far beyond me. I've been blessed to have a community of like-minded warriors. Yeah. That contribute. You know, you, Rustin, Ryan, the list goes on and on. His coaches. You don't do much in life by yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you realize that, I think life becomes a lot more fun, and it produces the results you want because you don't feel that pressure to do everything by yourself. Like, hey, sometimes the best way to teach somebody is to let them go learn. Yeah. Out from under you. Yeah. So
beautiful to watch. Beautiful thing to see. Well, speaking of being a blessing, let's hop into last week's episode, our purposeful practice episode about being a blessing. How was your purposeful practice for last week?
Dude, it was humbling. That's the first word that comes to mind. I shared with you, we got a couple different messages from audience members and community members around the country, one of which Ryan out in Massachusetts said he listened to that episode twice while working a shift as a police officer out there. And that it made him reflect and put out a social media post on making sure you're impacting somebody today. So I think sometimes our biggest blessing with this show is that we just show up all the time. And we continually share, and we're consistent, we're there, because people get to pick and choose what message hits home, when it hits home, maybe not this week, but next week. So I think just showing up in the space where we are genuinely wanting to share and help others is one of the biggest blessings you could ever give somebody.
Amen. Yeah, the consistency is key.
How about you?
That's huge. Very similar. You know, I also had a few people reach out about that episode, and it was really cool to see that a lot of people just need to be reminded that you can be a blessing. It doesn't have to be this huge thing where you have to donate all this money or volunteer an entire day. You can be a blessing just in a single conversation. Small actions compound over time to really make a big impact. And like you said, the consistency of us showing up for our community, I think, is an example of that compound effect, and so can that blessing. So that was just a good reminder of, hey, just a simple conversation can be a huge
And it was
blessing.
funny. I actually had one message with somebody that listens to the show that really struck home with me, and that is exactly what you said. They shared that they have, once a year they go to Central America and build schools or hospitals and work with the community. But they shared that listening to our episode made them realize they are trying to bless one big time a year. And they were kind of overlooking the day-to-day interactions are actually a blessing to somebody. Greeting somebody at the store, calling somebody by their name like we talked about last week.
That's simple.
And it kind of reminded them that big blessings are fantastic, but there's a lot of little ways you can bless people every day.
How cool, every day. Yeah. South America, huh? That's big.
Central America, yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, speaking of blessings, I'm extremely excited to have our first guest episode here on the On Purpose podcast for someone who's been a huge blessing in my life, Mr. Rustin Hughes. I like to call him a modern-day superhero.
Hold on. Dude, you know I got to do this.
What's that? Yeah, give it up for Rustin. Mr. Modern-day superhero. That's my nickname for Rustin because he's an Army veteran, also president of Be Bold, and what he does is empower individuals through adaptive sports. And I've personally been to his organization, Be Bold, and it's extremely powerful of how some of these athletes are coming in here doing something that they never thought they'd be able to do in their entire lives and truly being empowered. I've witnessed it. He's also a world para Jiu Jitsu competitor, has gotten to go all around the world, Dubai, Ireland. He'll tell you more. All around the world. He's a husband and a father. And he also has an amazing event coming up here at Trials, our Leap Day 24-hour roll-a-thon. And, of course, the Be Bold adaptive boxing and adaptive TRX classes that go on weekly, and a whole lot more that we're going to be hearing from Rustin Hughes. So let's give it up one more time for Rustin Hughes, baby.
There we go.
Yeah. Rustin, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, brother, we were planning our first guest. You were on the short list, for a couple reasons. One, you've impacted both of us. You continue to impact those around you. And we truly believe more people need to hear your story.
Right on. I appreciate that.
It's our honor to have you here and to be able to share this. But before we get deep into the story, we got to warm you up a little bit. We got to warm up our community because we can't just get them up and jump into the big purpose stuff. So
exactly,
we got a little round of warm up here.
Yeah, just a few warm-up questions for the community to get to know you a little better. When Jared and I started this podcast, we said it'll be about 50 episodes before we bring a guest on, and this wasn't strictly by design, but so happens 48. You're our first guest. Again, huge privilege, so really appreciate you, and we got to do a couple warm-up questions so the community gets to know you. Yep. So first warm-up question, Russ, is what book are you currently reading?
I'm reading Jared's book, actually, right now.
Oh, nice. Is this stage right here?
No, shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. I don't read. I mean, if it's not a recipe or instructions, I don't read.
Okay.
So, yeah, after Jared came out with his book, I have to be kind of motivated to read or have a reason to read, and this is definitely a good reason to read.
Nice.
And
I appreciate that.
It's pretty cool to know somebody who's wrote a book.
Yeah.
And then to even know the people that are in the book.
Yeah.
And do you ever find yourself going, man, he's not that smart and he can write a book, so maybe I should?
Not me. What I was just like, well, wow, never did I ever think that it was possible. But now, there's definitely it's a possibility.
Right.
I think that's the thing too, that you showed me, that it's a possibility. And then you can it goes back to kind of where I started from, is that you can do anything you want to do. Anything that you put your mind to, you can do.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, wow, man, like maybe that's something I put on my list of things I want to do in my future.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Number 2, if you can have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Nice.
There's a couple people I'm thinking of. I think my dad's dad. I never met him. I was 1 or 2 when he passed away, so I never heard a lot about him, a lot of stories, but never met him.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy, I can't remember his last name, from Canada. He was the guy that had cancer, lost his leg, and ran across Canada. His name was Terry. He had passed away. It was crazy story. I cannot remember what his last name was, but he had cancer, lost his leg, ran across Canada, and then he unfortunately passed away pretty much right after he ran across Canada. But It was all this like awareness and like the leg that he had. You're watching this story, and it was, I think it was in the 80s, late 70s, and just very technology wasn't there. And to see him do this run, I mean, Canada's a very long.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was another one just because that mindset of, who would have ever thought to run with one leg across Canada?
Right.
It's just that's that mindset that.
Did he use crutches or?
No, dude, to watch it, it's pretty hard to watch.
Really?
Yeah. Because,
wow.
I mean, even like the prosthetic technology was not.
So he had a prosthetic on. It was just really bad technology.
Yeah, he was definitely favoring his good leg a lot, and but to have that mind determination to do that is, that's just. I think that we all have that in us, that we all have to have it somehow brought out of us. It's all instilled into us some way, shape, or form. It's just how do you bring it out of you, and that's
Definitely. Definitely 2 dinners worth attending for sure. So last question on the warm-ups, Russ, is what is your favorite quote?
I have a friend who he's a teacher in Cleveland, and I just talked to him last weekend. I enjoy talking with him. And I'm probably gonna mess it up.
That's all right. We mess them up every week.
Yeah.
The only way. How does it go? Something is through. The only way is through. I can't remember how it actually goes, but it's basically if you just have to go through it. There's no like tiptoeing around. There's no tiptoeing around this stuff, and it's just like, God, I wish I could remember what it was, but it hit home for me quite a bit as far as like, wow, yeah. If you to get to those good, awesome spots in your life, you got to go through the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the growth happens. That's where you learn. That's where, that's where you pick yourself back up and look who you are as a person too. Right. That's one of the bigger things too, is like to look at yourself as a person and see growth too. That's something that we don't really see a lot because we're with ourselves all the time, and we don't really sometimes notice that growth.
Yeah. Which is exactly why we have this kind of community. Because sometimes when you're in that struggle and you're in the fire, so to speak, you don't see the sharpness you're becoming. You don't see yourself getting better, but you need to be around people that can pull that out of you and remind you of it.
Yep.
Which is honestly one of the biggest blessings this community provides each other, as they foster growth.
Yep.
Yeah. And definitely Rustin Hughes is an individual who knows the journey of going through, Rustin. So thank you for answering those warm-up questions. Now it's time to talk a little bit about purpose. Here on the On Purpose podcast, our mission is to empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. And with your journey, your amazing story, it looks like in the last 5 to 10 years, you've had so many events in your life that have really challenged you to refine your purpose. So now as you sit here with us today, Rustin, what would you say is your life's purpose? And tell us a little bit about how you got there.
I think my life's purpose right now is just to show people that they have a purpose, and then that they have potential inside of themselves. And how do we pull that out? And like we pull it out of one person in one way, and we pull it out of another person in another way. So it's not just like a one size fits all kind of thing. So we have to find, what our potential is, what our purpose is. And what I've been able to do is even like blend my purpose and passion. Like I love boxing, and I love Jiu Jitsu. I love sports like that, combat type sports. And then to have people So when we originally started Be Bold, it was taking people with disabilities and showing them adaptive sports.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I started to realize that, I was more disabled when I had 2 legs before, like me with 1 leg, I believe I'm more abled than I was with 2 legs.
Right. And maybe, Rustin, since all of our listeners don't know your full story, let's tell them how you got there.
So, yeah, I'm going to kind of start in the middle and then kind of break from there.
Cool.
So I had just lost my wife to brain cancer. She had battled for 11 years. She had gone through 4 craniotomies, radiation, chemo. During those years with her, I just seen her strength. And then after she passed away, my good friend, Coach Ryan, his family invited me to stay with them, and just so I could kind of get my mind right, And I was a plumber by trade, which, it paid the bills. I made pretty good money, but I was not like happy with the job that I had. I really enjoyed cooking. I just really, like kind of being an athlete and then having how do you fuel your body through food, and just, it's also bringing people together. On Sundays we'd have God's Day. We'd cook, invite people over. So I went to culinary school in Boulder. I graduated at the top of my class. I went to Key West and did my internship. I had a big business plan. After I got back, I was going to be a personal chef and start a food truck. So everything was kind of looking good. Then I was walking up to Red Rocks. We were going to see a concert, and I had had this issue with my leg, but I just thought it was, being training all the time, you always have something kind of bothering you at times, so I just thought I had a pulled muscle or a pinched nerve.
Because at this point you had done a few MMA fights, right?
Yeah, I'd done 4. And I was looking to kind of get back into it a little bit, but I needed to just get everything else into perspective. But then I realized that, I wasn't able to walk as much. I had a dog that I'd walk every day, and those distances got less and less. Red Rocks was kind of this pinnacle moment of where I could not walk up to our seats. We got there finally. We watched the show. Coming back, it was even worse. I could not. I kept having to stop. It just felt like someone had shut off my leg. It was hard to walk. It felt like it was full of concrete. So then the next day we're at this farmer's market, and the same thing happened. We're in the middle of this farmer's market, and there's just no way for me to get to the car. So my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Britta, she's like, I'll go get the car, but I'm taking you to the emergency room. And I'm just like, I don't have insurance. And she's like, well, you have the VA, and I'm taking you to the VA. Mm. We go to the VA, and, I'm just, I tell them what's going on, and they go in, they do an ultrasound, and they're just like, you've got a really big blood clot in your femoral artery. And at that time, I'm just like, I don't even understand what they're saying to me. I'm like, okay. And they're like, we're rushing you to ICU. And I'm just like, ICU? That sounds a little more serious. And then the doctor's telling me that, yeah, you're going to probably be on blood thinners and possibly you could have your leg amputated. And then they're wheeling me off, and it was just very surreal. And it was almost like they were speaking another language to me, but I could understand what they were saying. And, as we were walking back, I'm thinking to myself, amputation, that's trying to go through the definition of amputation. And so we were in ICU, and they're trying to bust through the clot, and they can't do it. It was 2 days of trying to bust through this clot, and they couldn't do it. And they're just like, yeah, here's a bottle of pain pills, and here's a bottle of blood thinners, and we'll see in about a month. And at that time, I went back to Nebraska and stayed with my parents just to get everything situated, because I was just in shock. the only question that I had at that time was like, at some point in my life, am I going to lose my leg? That's the question I wanted the doctors to answer.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, you're probably. So we had the appointment, and I was like, listen, I just want to get this out. It was the first thing I asked them, and they're just like, yeah. I'm like, well, let's do it then, because, I was 39. I was in pretty good shape, and I figured that if I got to relearn to walk, might as well do it now.
Yeah.
Because who knows what a couple of years of being on oxycodone would lead to. At that time, too, I was in a lot of pain, and I was abusing the pills for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I was not taking the recommended dosage. And a lot of it was just to numb out, because I was just questioning a lot of things.
Yeah.
But, they kind of looked at me like, okay, well, let's do it. So it was August 22nd, 2014. We go in, and they do this. And that was another thing. We had this discussions on where the amputation was going to be, and below the knee, above the knee. They even tried to talk me into doing a bypass. But like I said, I was a plumber before, so I put everything into like plumbing terminology and stuff. And I was like, that's a long bypass, like, I don't see how you could do this bypass. And if the bypass failed, I would have been an automatic above the knee amputee. And then, so I was just like, well, let's do the below the knee. We did the below the knee. I turned 40 2 weeks after that. We were up in Estes Park. I had just gotten out of the hospital. My family's up there. We're all celebrating my 40th birthday, and I am in the most excruciating pain. Like, there's nothing that can touch the pain that I'm in. And so they rushed me to the emergency room. I still have stitches in my leg, and the emergency room people, they find out I'm VA, and they're just like, they gave me some pain pills, and then I go back to the VA. So I go back, and this is over the Labor Day weekend, and they take one of those like Q-tips, those doctor Q-tips, and I'm sitting in my wheelchair, and he goes by this incision part, and he just buries that into that incision. Oh, and like, I'm squeezing my tires of my wheelchair so hard. And there was another patient that was kind of behind the doctor that was watching it, and he almost passed out. The doctor looks at me, and he's just like, we got to get you into surgery. And then I was just like, well, I'm on blood thinners. So that was a whole week protocol of weaning me off blood thinners before we could get to that point, which were these Lovenox shots that I had to give myself in my stomach twice a day, which it was horrible. And they also had me staying in a hotel sort of by the hospital, and I would have to take a taxi back and forth, and I would get into arguments with the taxi drivers almost on a daily basis.
Was it down in Denver, or where were you?
Yeah, Denver. Yeah. They would slam my wheelchair around, and just like it was, and also I'm on all this pain medicine, and like, I'm so irritable. Jeez. I mean, it was almost fist fights every day trying to get to the.
Oh my God!
I mean, yeah, it was bad. And then, they go in on September 11th, and they're just like, all right, we're going to go in, we're going to clean it out, but there's a possibility we could take it above the knee. Do you want us to wake you up? And I was just like, no. Like, you're going to wake me up to put me back out? And they're like, pretty much. And I wasn't even really expecting the above the knee. I was possibly expecting maybe like they took it a little bit more up from where it was, but not take the knee. So, I mean, it was a crazy scenario. Like, I wake up, and I'm by myself, and I'm kind of like putting everything together. Like you wake up from a dream or something, and you're just like, what happened?
Yeah.
And so everything's kind of coming to me, and then I realize, all right, you were just in surgery. And I look down, like I look in the sheets, and, I don't have my leg. And so at that point, like, it was just, I start screaming and then in my head, I'm like trying to move my knee, and my knee is not there.
Oh, wow.
And then these nurses, they come and they're taking me from one floor to the next, and they have to take me by the waiting room for where my family's at, and I'm screaming bloody murder. And they get me in the room, and again, this is VA, and I have 2 other roommates in my room after coming out of surgery, and one of them is telling me to shut the F up. And it's just like, you have got to be, like, I was just, I was screaming. I couldn't control myself, like, they didn't tell me this had happened. I had to find out just by, looking that. So it took a while for me to settle down.
Yeah, of course, man. It's just got your leg amputated.
And, to have roommates too, like, was a whole nother thing. Like, there was just so much craziness in that first, that first month.
Right.
How long did it take before you got back on the mat?
Well, so my wife would pick me up on weekends, and then I would come back to Fort Collins.
Yeah.
And so Ryan would hold mitts for me. I think the first time he held mitts for me was like right about 90 days after the second.
Yeah, and I asked that because I knew he was going to be fine, because I got to roll with Rustin before the amputation. He was rough. Like, he was not your typical jiu-jitsu guy. Like, he was fucking rough. And I remember when he first came in, he came to the daytime classes, and we knew he was Ryan's buddy. And we're like, Jesus, kid's fucking just rough on everybody. And Ryan's like, yeah, he's from North Platte. And then even after his amputation, he comes back and he brings in his gi, and he's like, I'm going to roll. And he was rougher. He literally got rougher. I was like, he'll be fine. He's going to make the most of this, because, I had never rolled with an amputee. I'd never rolled with somebody that baited you into going to this side so he could sneak underneath you and armbar you all day. Mm-hmm. And when he came back, the fact that he was in the gym, we were like, okay, that's a good sign. And I think, to me, one of the big lessons for our listeners out there is, when you face adversity, it's easy to push away from everybody that's close to you. But the reality is, you need to immerse yourself deeper. And you hear Ryan brought him out here after the death of his wife. And I remember that's when I first met you, was when you were living with Ryan. He was making you come to the gym all the time. And there were times you didn't work out. Yeah. You literally came and sat in the gym. Wow. And for our communities, sometimes we got to fight the urge to push people away when we know they're in their time of need, and really pull them in. And that's, to me, that's one of the big stories here. Yeah. Is you accepted your community, right? And the community pulled you in more when you needed it the most.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and to even go back to like the whole jiu-jitsu thing is like, I hated doing gi jiu-jitsu. I hated it. And then like being at the gym, I think I showed up one day and it was Brad and Graham were there, and Brad was like, well, if you want to get better at no-gi, you got to do gi. Yeah. And that was my light bulb moment of just like, well, whatever he said just hit this light bulb in my head where I want to start doing gi now to get my no-gi better. And then from there it was like, well, then like I said, Ryan told me, he's like, listen, I don't know how you're going to do this, but you need to take like your disadvantages and just make them your advantages. Yeah. And that was another like light bulb moment. And then I got the videos like rolling with Jason Brown. Like I hit that arm bar and it was just like, wow, right. I can hit that and I can hit it quick. And a lot of times the way that people defend it, I don't have that leg there. Mm-hmm. And it's just turned into, I dubbed it Nub Jitsu.
And that's what I think, like that's the sense of humor, right? He came up with Nub Jitsu, and now I hope I don't get this wrong, but the nub is actually Eugene. Yep. Yeah, he actually called his nub Eugene. Right? And so then instead of becoming this thing that you didn't talk about, and it just became part of the gym, it became part of our community.
Right.
Well, and even I think the way that I wear my pants, like I want people, well, I do it for a couple of reasons, but I want people to see my leg. I want people, because for one, like my leg is pretty expensive. It's $150,000 leg. You know, that's
man,
like
Iron Man
yeah.
stuff.
And so we might as well show that. And also, it's like life tried to take me out, and this is my medal to show that it didn't.
Yeah.
And then it's, you know, all this technology that's coming in it. Like I just got this new leg with this pretty cool blade and stuff. I mean, it's kind of cool to see this, and also know that we're all different. We all have something that's disabling us in one way or another. And I tell people that, yeah, you look at me, you may think that my leg is like my disability. And it's like, well, it's not. The death of my wife is my disability. And it still, you know, it affects me today.
Sure.
And you know, this is nothing. Losing my leg was nothing.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I remember one of the first times you and I got lunch together, and I remember you gave me goosebumps when you said, Ali, I was more disabled when I had my other leg.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, just through all the lessons that you learned and through you grew. So now, Russ, with your purpose now being to help instill confidence in other people, regardless of whatever happens in their life, and help them find their potential, how did you first have to get there? Because that type of adversity, I mean, most of our community, I've never experienced that type of adversity. I mean, what you shared with us of waking up, that sounds like a horrible nightmare of waking up and not having your leg and having these people yelling at you to shut the fuck up. And I can't even imagine what you were going through. And then on top of that, you have the VA giving you fucking oxycodone and all these painkillers that mess with your mind. I mean, that must have been probably your rock bottom to where it's so hard to come out of. So now, you know, when you experience this level of adversity, how did you get to this point to where now you're inspiring others, you're inspiring us?
Yeah.
You know, how did you get here from the depths of the darkness that you just shared with us?
I think it was the 11 years of watching my wife go through cancer. And it was this point of where I was just like, how could I give up? How could I come this far just to come this far, in a sense? You know, how could I give up right now after everything that she's been through, and I just kind of go through this? Are you serious? So I mean, that's where, like you said, I was at the bottom of the bottom. I'm sitting there like, I knew I was at these crossroads, and whatever I was gonna do, I was gonna do it 100%. Either I was gonna go for it or I was gonna give up, and I was gonna do it 100%. And so
That's powerful.
I was at this point. I was like, you know, we used to drive back to Omaha for the med center there, University of Nebraska Med Center. That's where Brandy did all of her treatments. I could probably autopilot that ride. I mean, we would drive. We would drive back to Omaha or Kearney so much. After I lost my leg, I was just like, well, you know, I needed to find something to do. And so I was like, I'm going to ride a bike originally it was from Denver to Omaha, and it was going to be from VA to VA. And then I was just like, I'm sick and tired of the VA, so I'm not doing anything with the VA. So I decided to do it from Fort Collins because this is my community, and I was going to end it at the hospital, which when we ended at the hospital, we were at 590 miles is what we had done.
Wow.
We were 10 miles away from our hotel, which was so crazy. It was just like, let's just do it, because there was a little pedestrian bridge that took you over the Missouri River. What was really cool about it, too, we followed the Poudre River to the Missouri. Yeah. Then we crossed the Missouri River, went on to Council Bluffs, and as soon as we pulled up, we hit 600 miles.
And was that a hand bike?
Yeah, I had a hand cycle. My friend Dustin had a recumbent, which is done with his legs. It was just him and I. And, I mean, we did multiple 100-mile days. Like, on my birthday, my 43rd birthday, I think, we did about 115 miles that day.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just, you know, I did 5,000 miles training that year, which I'd never rode a bicycle before other than just, like, for fun.
Yeah.
And then to get on a hand cycle, which that was one thing that the VA did give me, which was very beneficial. Was they gave me a hand cycle. It was a very nice one, $8,000 hand cycle.
Oh, shit.
And then to find all of these bicycle paths that are in Colorado. I mean, you can go from Fort Collins to Greeley to Loveland to Bellevue, you can get 100 miles in just on trails. And then it gave me goals. I could start setting goals. Right. And that's where Be Bold kind of came from. That's what Brandy, my late wife, had as license plates when she was young, when she was in high school.
Okay.
Is that right?
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, her grandpa would always, so her name's Brandy, and they would call her B, and so Be Bold is where all that came from.
So how'd the bold tie in? Is that a last name or?
Her grandpa, her grandpa Harris, was an awesome. He played baseball with Satchel Paige.
Oh yeah.
Yep, they played in these. So this was a small corn league, and they played the Negro League at that time, and they played against Satchel Paige. So Grandpa Harris would always say, "Be Bold, Brandy." That was his kind of their line.
Isn't that funny how the world just kind of puts little things in our lives, and we have no idea that they become important down the road?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Gosh, that's good. Yeah, I didn't realize that's where Be Bold came from.
Yep. Because I was just like, well, I mean, I want to dedicate something to her.
Yeah.
Because like being in that whole cancer, we didn't have a lot of money for gifts for each other or to do stuff. So there was a lot of times like Christmases came and we just like high-fived each other. It was kind of like,
wow.
So and then you get into these moments where you're just like, oh, we can't afford this and we can't afford that, and it was just like all that stuff was just, it was just hard. It was hard.
And this is what I think we love about Rustin is even an opportunity to share a story about himself and make his adversity his. It's never him. It's always somebody else. And Rustin has continued to do this day in and day out since losing his leg. Like, he has not slowed down. As a matter of fact, he's picked it up. So, Rustin, can you help give us an idea on all the different things you're involved with to share your story, your hope, your inspiration with the others that are maybe struggling with the same kind of stuff?
Well, like right now we do our Be Bold boxing, and that is just, it's so cool to see these people come in, and I have people that will come in and say, hey, listen, I don't have a disability, and I'm just like, that's all you have to just come in. Like, I don't care, like, what you got going on in your life, but if you can come in and we can hit mitts and we can high five and we can have a good time and you're going to feel better when you leave here, then I did my job. Yeah. And then you can also, it can empower people. Like, listen, I learned that people with disabilities are 3 times more likely to be attacked than able-bodied people. And that's another how Be Bold kind of...
Wow, is that really a statistic?
Yeah. Think about it, man.
Gosh.
And it's been, and that's why they have extra, that's why there's laws that make crimes against
people with disabilities.
We call them at risk, right? But yeah, it's more severe. But it doesn't, remember, the law is after the fact. Yep. What he's doing is before, trying to help prevent it.
And that's where I tell people, I was like, listen, I go, that's not an ability issue. That's a confidence issue. And I go, what we need to do is we need to instill confidence into people. Because regardless of whatever you go through in your life, you're going to have those moments and times when you're not confident about yourself or your abilities. And that goes back to community and being able, when you fall down, other people will rise you up. But when you're at a bus stop or whatever and you look vulnerable and you look like you could be, I could pickpocket your wallet easy, you're all slumped over. Or if you're standing up, you're aware of your surroundings. I mean, I dare someone to take my wallet. Yeah. I seriously dare someone to take my wallet. And it's not that I'm, I don't want to get into anything, but it's just like I am confident enough to know that I can handle myself. And that's what I want people to, like, say that you're in a wheelchair and someone comes up behind you. I want you to have some confidence to know that you can get out of the situation. Yep. And that's what, and you could have 2 arms and 2 legs and all that stuff and still not have confidence to get yourself out of a situation. So it's instilling the confidence first.
Yeah. That's amazing. So Russ, I remember I had seen Be Bold on Facebook and Instagram, and you'd posted some pictures, and to me, like, I was like, oh man, that's cool. You know, I've never in my life seen any type of content or media to where there was amputees, deaf people, blind people doing martial arts, people with disabilities doing martial arts. I was like, you know what, this is badass. And I remember seeing those pictures, and they had an impact on me. You know, I was like, this is really cool stuff. It inspired me enough to go. And, of course, knowing you, rolling with you in jiu-jitsu classes, you inspired me. Same thing like Jared said. I never wrestled with an amputee guy over here submitting me, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, dude, holy shit, he doesn't have a leg. He's kicking my ass. I gotta figure this out. So I go to Be Bold, and I remember one of the first classes I went to, I met James. Yep. And James is paralyzed from the waist down.
He has cerebral palsy.
Okay, cerebral palsy and only a little bit of movement.
Yeah.
But completely there. I'd never met someone with cerebral palsy, and man, that was the first time where I really had a profound impact of being in that environment. And I remember Coach Ryan Schultz said, James, you want to go first on the battle ropes? And James rolls up in his chair and just lets out this battle cry. It's like, ah! Yeah. And you know, an MMA gym is the last place you want to show any weakness. And I just remember just clapping my hands, and I couldn't help it. Tears just start rolling down my face because I felt his emotion, his passion of wanting to be there. So maybe let's tell our listeners, because that for me, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, is Be Bold, what you're doing with empowering adaptive athletes like this? Are there other places that in the country, in the world, that adaptive athletes, people with disabilities, can go to train martial arts? Or is Be Bold kind of a very, very rare thing?
At the front of it.
There's a guy in Amsterdam who has an adaptive boxing. There's another guy and you might have seen this. They do the wheelchair boxing in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a big wheelchair boxing, and I've corresponded with all of these guys. There's another. They are called Adaptive Martial Arts, and they're out of England somewhere, and they do, it seems like, more jiu-jitsu style stuff. My good friend Cole Rogers is out in California, and he has Fightability out there, and he's going to be actually with us at the Rollathon.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Him and I have actually, so we had one of our good friends, and he was a pioneer in this para-jiu-jitsu. He passed away suddenly last year to a car accident. And so we didn't want, like, his memory just to kind of go away. And so what we really wanted to, we want to form this United States para-jiu-jitsu team. And so what we started, we did a clinic up at America Top Team in Portland. Professor Fabiano Scherner had us come out there, and we put on our first we called it an adaptive wellness seminar, because again, we go to everybody can benefit from martial arts, and how martial arts kind of parallels life in ways where, you know, it's good to get comfortable being in uncomfortable positions in life. We had really good feedback from that. We're doing this one here in Fort Collins on the 29th, and then we're looking at doing one in Southern California. And then we're going across the United States just to build momentum and to show people that, hey, just because you go through a diagnosis, an accident, or whatever in your life, that you can still do things. And, you know, like, it was so crazy. I lost my leg and I gained this life. Like, I did so much. I have done so much in these 5 years. Like, I never danced. I learned how to dance. Like, who would have thought that? Like, a guy with one leg. I learned how to swim. I taught myself how to swim. I traveled to Abu Dhabi. I went to London to do jiu-jitsu. I got paid to do, you know, fight to win pro, you know, like a guy with one leg, you know. And I believe that I was the first para-athlete to compete against an able-bodied person and then win. Because there's been other ones that have competed, but we've never won.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that I was the first.
And I love that because if I remember right, you pretty much demanded an able-bodied opponent.
Oh, that's, yeah.
You didn't want to, because you'd already competed in para-jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You told them, I want to go against an able-bodied athlete on one of the bigger stages jiu-jitsu has, which is Fight to Win Pro.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how did you beat him again?
Heel hook.
Heel hook.
Nice.
That crazy. Took my man's leg.
Oh, I mean, It's so funny that I find working the legs a lot, and a lot of it goes back to like when I go in for some of these submissions, people think that my leg is going to be there, and it's not, and that's a lot of the counters sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that split second of them going, wait a minute, like I can advance position or utilize that, and I can get myself into some positions that I wouldn't be able to if I had the leg.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point for everybody that's listening, is just because you can't do something the same way everybody else does, it doesn't mean it's impossible to you. It means you have a unique ability to do it differently for you. If your mind's open to it, if you're not going to sit and feel sorry for yourself and say, why me? How come I can't do this? Instead, you look at it as
an opportunity.
Absolutely, because we're all unique.
Yep. That's where Nub Jitsu comes in, and that's where you can have
Nub Jitsu.
Ali Jitsu and Jared Jitsu, and like you talk to these people, and even like when we met up on Tuesday, Lydia, how she could take jujitsu and form it, have it her own. It's like you're taking ownership of something. It's yours. You're creating it, and you can succeed from it.
Which is what? Life.
Exactly.
Nobody's life is exactly the same. They're not supposed to be the same. I'm not supposed to have the same path as you or you. But what I got to do is make the most of my path.
Yep.
And instead of getting caught up in comparison and, this person has it easier, that person has it. No, we all have our own difficulties. We all have our own challenges. The successful people adapt to them and rise out.
Well,
and we fight the urge to sit and stay as a barrier instead of looking for ways to get through it.
Well, I think also is appreciate our differences. A lot of times we want to hide our differences. We don't want our differences to be seen. Instead, let's bring them to the surface. Let's show them and say. And I think when you expose your differences, and a lot of things, I think people think of differences as being a weakness, and I don't think that that's what it is. I think it's an opportunity to adversity is an opportunity to grow and to build something from it. The saying of taking lemons and making lemonade, I'm at the point where it's like, I'm done making lemonade. Let's start selling this stuff. It's like, I've made a lot of lemonade and let's start selling this, because I think a lot of times people don't know how to deal with adversity. They think when adversity hits them that it's over, and it's so easy just to tap out. And then everyone can look, oh, he had it hard. It's so, we're going to let him just lay there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, people could have let me just lay there, you know, and because he's been through a lot, and I could have allowed that too. But it's just like, that's not the person that I am. That's not the person that my community is going to allow me to be. Mm-hmm. That's not the person that I remember. I want my wife to remember me to be. It's just like, there's all these things where it's just like, also, how can my story help somebody else? And I never thought that was even a possibility. Like when I was growing up, I was a little fat kid growing up, which is crazy. I was just overweight, younger, no confidence, no self-esteem. Get to a point, go in the military, all blah, blah, blah. And, it's just, I'm at this point now where I'm confident, and I want to just help spread that, because even if we live to be 100 years old, it's not enough time on this planet. Yeah. It's not enough time. And so it's just like making the best of it, and then trying to take as many people with me up the ladder to success.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're doing an amazing job, my friend. We're blessed to have you in our lives, and we're down. Let's start selling this lemonade.
Yeah.
Start selling some Rustin Hughes Be Bold lemonade to people. So what's a couple tips? So you found your purpose. You're definitely living in your purpose. You're making people better all around. Are there a couple tips you would share with our community members to listen to help them find or live in their purpose?
I think one of the biggest things is you have to find what that thing is. That's the hard thing, is to find what that thing is. But once you find it, you'll know, because you're going to want to stay up late and get up early to do it.
Yeah.
And then surround yourself with like-minded individuals. That's going to be the biggest thing, is because you start hanging around people that are negative or don't have, I don't even know how to word it, but just, you need to start hanging around people that have the same kind of mindset that you're looking for, so you're not into this where you're questioning what you're doing kind of thing. you're always going to question some things at times, but just keeping your eye on the prize and knowing that there's this amazing thing or above the horizon. It's just like, there was times when I was in the middle of all of this, and it was very dark, but there was just a little light. You could see this little light.
Yeah.
And it was just like the more and more I just kept going forward, that light kept getting bigger and bigger. And it wasn't easy. It's not easy to do some of this at times. Like my socket was giving me some troubles yesterday, or there's times that I just can't get up and put my leg on, or I'm in my wheelchair, and it's just like I got to be at this place, and I got to make things work. And, it's tough, but you just got to, count your blessings. That's one of the biggest things, is realize it could be worse. It could always be worse. There's somebody out there that always has it worse.
Yeah.
But I just think that I'm in an awesome spot in my life. I'm around some of the best people that I've ever been around in my life. And I think that, this is just continuing going up with this.
Awesome. Where can people connect with you, Rustin? If people want to jump on board and start helping you push lemonade around the world, where can they find you?
On Facebook right now. I have my Rustin Hughes Adaptive Athlete page. I have my personal page, Rustin Hughes. There's also Be Bold, Adaptive Living, and then on Instagram, Rustin Hughes, and then Be Bold. I think it's Be Bold Adaptive Living on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, man, it's been powerful having you here, brother.
Well, thank you. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to just share one more thought I had, Rustin, is what's amazing is you're not only inspiring adaptive athletes and people with disabilities, you're inspiring anyone who hears your story, and that's me included. And I think what you're doing and some of these things that you're showing through living your purpose is kind of like your quote, the only way through is through, kind of thing, of that continuance and finding your purpose, because you help people not only continue, but see things that they once thought were impossible, including me. I mean, the one time when I told you, hey, I want to run in this Be Bold race, and I want to be in solidarity with the team, give me a wheelchair, I'll run blindfolded. And then, I call you a couple of days before the race. You're like, dude, I saw this. I heard about this woman who did a 5K on crutches, so I'm doing it on crutches. Bro, I swear to God, I was like, dude, is that even possible? Like, that did not even cross my mind as a possibility. And what you're doing for others is showing that impossible is possible. I did that 5K with you, and afterwards I was like, holy shit, I didn't even think that was possible. Yep. Beating an able guy on the stage was able-bodied guy on the stage, the first guy to ever do it. Proving the impossible is possible. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's definitely the message that I've received is proving the impossible to be possible. And it's been a blessing to have you on the show with us today.
I appreciate it.
And I think another thing that really comes to mind for me is saying the only way through is through. Well, for a lot of people, they don't know how to get through because there's no path. It takes one person to start that path.
Yep.
And that's what you're doing, my friend. You've started a path, so now other people, their way through is a little clearer. It's a little easier because there's somebody leading the way. There's somebody taking charge and showing them. So, man, what a phenomenal story. And honestly, I couldn't imagine a better person to kick off the guest series than my man, Rustin Hughes.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Anything else for him, Ali?
I think we are good just to close out. Thanks again, Rustin. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, so remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. Get in here, follow Rustin Hughes, share this with your friends. Let's start selling some Rustin Hughes Be Bold lemonade, and we will see everybody next week.